Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
You understand the words I'm saying?
Well, yeah.
Hello?
I'm a human being like you are.
We all come from the same place.
Yeah.
We're from the same place.
You're made of stardust.
I hand you dirt, and you'll understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can translate that gesture?
Mm-hmm.
How do you translate that gesture? How do you do it?
It's just a feeling.
It's just a feeling, and we're here with a certain type of feeling that no other podcast in the universe has, even though we're all from the same place. We
channel this particular energy.
We have
it exists
YY.
in lots of places.
We have YYF, Yum Yum feeling, where we're a podcast, a husband and wife duo, Ryan and Rachel. I'm Ryan. That's Rachel over there. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Yumlings.
Hi,
and
Yumlings and Ryan. We're no longer Yumlings ourselves. And we are going through science fiction television, and we are going through them episode by episode, giving our thoughts and opinions on them, and we are looking at Space Above and Beyond. This is a rewatch for myself, but for Rachel, this is a first-time experience, and we are at the tail end of the show. This is a one-season darling that was cancelled before its time. It's an entire thing that you can listen to previous episodes or look up the information for yourself. But suffice to say, a sci-fi show on Fox was a recipe for disaster in terms of longevity, not necessarily quality. And Rachel, do you want to know what we're talking about today? Do you have any clue of what the episode's title is?
Something about being buried.
Wow, you say it with such enthusiasm. You remember what number it is, though, don't you?
21, and I remember the...
Wrong, by the way. It's 22.
22 ends in an ellipses. It's like half of a sentence.
It is, and if they lay us down to rest. Rachel's description of this episode in our last one, where you guessed, you thought it was one where potentially a member of the 58th could have been killed.
Nobody died.
No one died.
Nobody died!
And you thought we were going to get some important Chig lore, and we did! We got a whole slew, so you were half right. I'll give you a point, but I won't give you two, okay? You got something. But this is what the DVD has to say about And If They Lay Us Down to Rest. The 58th lands on the moon of the Chig's home planet and encounters an extraterrestrial creature that may be an unarmored Chig or an entity an entirely different life form. Oh, wow. There's a whole bunch to go through here. So for myself, history-wise, of course I remember this episode. This is the one where we get to see what the Chigs look like, and I liked it. It's kind of hard for me to separate this from the next episode, because the next episode is a continuation of this. This is a two-parter. This is a to be continued, and this is the first part. And so, of course, yeah, I remember the big reveal, but the rest of it is a little hazy to me. So watching it again,
vague.
Yeah. It's like these jungles, they're dark and it's hard to make out all of these traps that are set around. But watching it again today, some of it came flooding back. Not all of it, but some of it came flooding back. And to say, I like this episode. It didn't blow my socks off, but I liked it nonetheless. Rachel, what did you think about this? You knew this is the second last episode. You had some certain high-level expectations coming into this. So what did you think of this?
It surprised me. That's the main thing that this episode did, was it managed to surprise me, because it was way more philosophical than I thought it was going to be. It's like we're gearing up towards the end of the season, and it's like they're just on a planet hunting an alien and then trying to talk to it, trying to communicate.
And along that journey, there's a lot of ethical and moral quandaries and dilemmas. And as you say, as you say, it gets very philosophical. People are musing on their actions that they take here and if they're right or wrong and what's the best course here. Is there even one? And
is there a right thing to do? Where does morality play in war?
Whatever it is, do you have to kill it? I mean, if you determine it poses no threat to us or to security, why kill it?
We actually got a lot of stuff paid off here.
Yes.
The opening of this episode is Vanson giving us a history of the universe.
From the Big Bang to now.
What did you think about that?
I was like, why do we need this? I don't want to spend time on this. Like, episodes that start with big monologues are usually hits, but there was that one. I don't know how I like this.
You were a bit apprehensive.
Yes.
And you're right. There's a level to it of what is this in aid of? How is this going to link into the story we're going to watch?
This?
Why do we need this? And it does tie back in with her comment at the end.
And it sets the tone very effectively.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It sets a tone. And that's the opening, just a cold monologue from Vanson and all of these images. And then, bam, opening credits. We also have a shot of an alien creature right before the opening credits. And there was even a bit of a tease throughout the sequence here where she's describing the life forms that we grew from. And there was a skull on the ground that kind of looked like what we perceived at the time as maybe a skull of one of the pieces of our evolution, or is this a homunculus of some sort, or a caveman or Neanderthal of some sort? And then when we actually see the real alien, we go, oh, that's its skull. Oh, okay. So then a part of your brain is trying to tie the words that she's saying with now this brand new information, and how does it all join together? And throughout the 45 minutes, we see in part how it comes together here.
Oh, I pegged that as not a human skull.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know necessarily. I thought, oh, is this because we saw all of these other steps of the evolutionary chain throughout the story, throughout that montage, like, and then it was like, oh, there's a skull.
It definitely is set up to be that, but I was just a bit too suspicious, and I was like, no, that's not Earth. That no.
Well, what gave it away? Was it the smoke?
No, it was that.
The shrubbery,
the shape of the skull and the size of it. I was like, that doesn't feel right to me.
And you were correct. Congratulations. You win the Yum Yum energy of this podcast. Everybody, hand in your Yum Yum energy if you've ever won it from us before, because Rachel's got it in her hands now. And she's going to be a benevolent ruler of the Yum Yum.
It's not a finite resource, Ryan.
It's not a finite resource. It's infinite in Rachel's hands. Where do you want to go from here? What do you want to talk about? What grabs you in the beginning of this?
How quiet it is. It's really quiet on the Saratoga. There's not much score happening behind a lot of things. We're getting the ambient noise and a feel for the sort of apprehension, because everybody's waiting for Roundhammer, and we get to see that a little bit, and we get to, see them on their merry way down to the planet after they get their little briefing.
Very intense briefing, and you're
no tables flipped though, so it can't be that intense.
You drop the round hammer on the anvil there, Rachel, when it comes to this atmosphere that is built into the opening. It's quiet. There's a sense of apprehension, but also a definite sense of certainty that something is happening.
They're ready.
The big thing is launched into gear. And how did you feel about how we see Operation Roundhammer is now paying off, and they reference how all of these previous episodes that we've had have helped build to this moment, that this ongoing continuity is ramping up to this big turn in the war.
Feels rewarding.
Yeah, even when they reference I can't remember the name of the Native American word that they used but that operation from that episode we didn't like.
That worked. Good. That wasn't a great episode by a long shot, but at least Jimmy succeeded in his afterlife.
He did succeed in his afterlife, but I like that briefing where we go from the briefing room to them going onto the ship and flying down, and it's McQueen's monologue transitions over all of that, and we get the stakes set up. You have this much amount of time. You can't fuck about, okay? Because these are the things you need to do, and if you fail, basically humanity's screwed. And that there, we know what that means. We, the viewer, know that means, oh, they're going to screw up somehow, and they're going to have to scramble, and they're going to have to try and get it in the nick of time. Or with a series like this, we actually have the potential to see our characters fail and make things worse.
Yes, that's a possibility.
Did that enter your brain at all, that with the intensity of the setup of you cannot fail at this is the last shot we have, that they could fail at this and screw it up?
Yeah. Because I know the end of the series has a very divisive and bombastic ending from what you've alluded to. So them entirely fucking up the war would meet that criteria. But as I settled into the episode, I was like, I don't feel like that's what they're going to do. That doesn't feel where this is heading.
And where does it head to, Rachel? Once they actually land on the planet and they get their boots on the ground, what unfolds in front of us?
Cooper sees an alien.
Why are you doubting me? Chigs are proof there's other life out here than us. There's got to be more of it, right?
In fact, I'm surprised we don't run into them more often.
I'll go under the assumption that Hawk saw something. The question is it advanced enough or friendly enough with the Chigs to tip off our presence? Now, we got about 75 minutes to extraction. We search for this thing, we jeopardize completing the mission.
And the conflict at hand, what we learn is, instead of what you, the audience, were perceived to believe the conflict to be, which is, if they don't succeed at this mission, things could go wrong, or they need to get this mission done and they'll be encountering Chigs and enemies, maybe silicates or whatever. The standards that we know from the series already. Instead, the conflict is one of an ethical and morality play. This is a morality play, where the conflict is, they have encountered this unknown alien life form, and they have to decide as a group and as individuals if they should let them live or if they should let them die, if they should kill them or spare them. And we have... I was blown away by this as well, because this is not what I remembered happening in the story. I just remember there's a Chig down there, we kind of don't know it's a Chig, and then we're revealed it is a Chig. But I really didn't remember this story playing out the way it does. It's the most Star Trek Space Above and Beyond has felt to me, but also deeply not, because what they're fighting over is something that the characters in Star Trek rarely, if ever, would actually fight over.
No.
But why I say it reminds me of Star Trek the most is because it's directly grabbing at the will we, won't we, morality, ethical drama that we see Star Trek go over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
And so that there is why I gravitate towards it, reminding me the most of Star Trek in comparison to any other Space Above and Beyond episode. But it still has that deeply Space Above and Beyond thing where one of our characters will probably go over there and shoot this thing.
Yep.
There's no doubt in your mind that Cooper or Shane could just go kill this thing.
Yeah, they were ready to do it.
That was one of my favorite scenes in the episode where Wang starts speechifying. He does the Star Trek thing. You know what he does? He does the Wesley Crusher. Oh, this thing could be a friendly alien. We should give it rights. We should treat it like us. If we perpetuate the cycle of violence onto another race, where does it end? He does the Wesley and Harry Kim thing, right? He does the Star Trek.
Yes.
I'm the young, fresh-faced ensign person, and I'm a good boy. And I adored that because it's sincere, it's genuinely played, and he's right. But Cooper just replies to that because there's a moment of silence. Cooper replies to that with just loading his gun up. He just cocks it and goes, "Let's go." He doesn't even say "let's go." He just walks off and Shane's right there with him. And that was the best sort of reply that this series would give, by the way. That's one of those where it's space above and beyond. You also reference the fact that this episode, especially the opening, is quiet. This episode has barely any dialogue in it. There's dialogue, but it's very minimal, which is another thing that sets Space Above and Beyond apart from its sci-fi contemporaries, where Babylon 5 and Star Trek are very talky. Mm-hmm. Very, very talky. Lots of jargon or speechifying about the themes, but here they're willing to just have shots of our characters running around without any words or having actions speak louder than the words. That moment with Cooper cocking his gun like that it says more to me than if he had some witty retort with his words. Mm-hmm. So what did you think about the crisis at hand that we were given, which is having to kill this unknown life form? Do we do it or not? How did you feel about just that being the premise that they actually went with instead of what they were initially pitching?
I was like, oh, we're doing this. I was expecting it to like change tacks halfway through the episode and be like, nope, this isn't what we're doing anymore. But no, they followed through on it. And I was a bit surprised by that.
This is a very, there's no other word to say but quiet affair. It's very, very minimal in its approach. And yet it's tackling these hard-hitting themes and issues where we're challenged with what we see the 58th usually do. When we see them just kill people, like the Chigs in this episode. We congratulate them, we champion them, we accept it because that's what they have to do to survive. That's war. It is what Cooper's speech is about.
Yeah.
But we now see it through the eyes of this alien who we don't know either, but through the eyes of this alien, we see the 58th from a different angle, from a different walk of life. And when we see
terrifying.
They're scary. And so when we have to see conversations with them where they're so casually talking about ending a life, it's actually deeply, deeply upsetting to see. And it's making me rock back in my seat, wondering if we're actually going to watch the 58th commit war crimes. That was one of the things that had me sweating in the episode was, are they going to commit an atrocity here today? And this is, again, the type of series where our characters are capable of doing that, and some of them have previously done it in the past, and it has weighed on their soul.
Yes. Yes. And you don't want that for them. But you're also not wanting them to endanger the whole plan and potentially lead to the destruction of all of humanity.
In a few hours, millions of human lives are going to land in this hellhole, and one of them's going to be mine. Another's going to be yours. Now, if you tell this thing, or you fly out of here without being assured of its silence, and the Chigs are waiting here, popping us out of the sky, those millions of lives are going to be lost because of us.
Everybody is being practical. I will acknowledge that, but they're coming at it in different ways. they all acknowledge that if the alien poses a threat, they should kill it. But they're trying to figure out if it does actually pose a threat and what kind. Because they believe that it's some other type of alien. They float that it could be a Chig just without the armor, but due to events, they kind of disregard that. They're like, well...
They can't lock it in.
Yeah. And then when Cooper thinks that he sees it being attacked by the Chigs...
Then he disregards it because he thinks that it's caught in the middle of this fight between the Chigs and the humans. Can we talk about West's opinion? What did you get out of West's views on this? Because his are the most, him and Danfoos are the most minor in it, but I found his to be
He gives
interesting.
us the initial feeling. Because they manage to track it down to the tunnels where the incubators are.
The nursery,
Yeah.
The nest.
Yep. And they take a good look at them, and West goes, they don't feel like the enemy. Been up close to them. I've heard their death cry.
I felt that connection of taking a life from one of them before. Which, gee whiz, isn't that just dark to think about that?
Oh, yeah. He's come a long way.
I was actually thinking about in between our last recording and this one, I was grabbing some screen caps for the episodes, and I was looking at our cast, and they are all so fresh-faced and young and baby-faced, and it just made me think about just the dissonance in the positive way of what they're having to go through, where we have these young, pretty, cute people like Nathan West is the dweeby boy next door who should be building a model rocket and working at the post office instead of being a guy who can have a speech like that where he says, oh, I know it isn't the enemy because I've killed those guys and I felt the life drain out of them and I know what that is and I've heard their death cry. And no, look at that guy. That's not the type of guy that you should have that. And same with all of them. I was just looking at them going, these young innocent people, they shouldn't be doing this, but that's the story. That's the story that we have.
They've had their youth taken from them.
They've had their innocence stripped away. Some of them never had the chance to have innocence. But West also, I really like that he is of the opinion of they're not Chigs. It's not a Chig, so we shouldn't kill it. But if it was a Chig, we should kill it. Mm-hmm. And I think that says a lot because Wang is of the opinion of if it isn't a Chig, we shouldn't kill it. It's the perpetuation of violence. Where does it end? If we impose our militaristic force onto this being's home planet or its living area, then how are we any better than the Chigs? But then even he, teamed up with Danfoos a little bit, are of the opinion of even if it is a Chig, perhaps we shouldn't keep doing that because it's clearly a different type of Chig. It's an unarmed one. Mm-hmm. It could be like a carer. We don't know. Even if it is a Chig, maybe we should have the ability for some compassion. And I think that's great to be opposite of West, where you talked about it. They bring practical, but each one of them has their limits when it comes to being the practical because they're humans. They're humans. We have Shane. Do you want to talk us through what Shane's headspace is during this episode? Because hers is the one that changes the most.
Yeah.
Or changes a lot. Her and Cooper change the most.
Yeah. They're the two that start out the firmest of, we got to kill it. Hawks is immediately, I saw this alien creature. It poses a threat to the mission. It must die. Vanson, however, is like, well, we've got time. We've got to make sure one way or another. But is then like, what the fuck is the thing doing? We've got to kill it. Like, we can't leave it alone on the chance that it is dangerous.
But she's also observant throughout the journey, because there are moments where she has the opportunity to kill it, and she doesn't because it displays behavior that is too hard to ignore. It displays things such as when she's caught up in the net, it comes over and it looks like it wants to help her.
Yeah.
And so it's harder to stab it in the face when it does that. But Cooper is on purposely, for a large chunk of the story, refusing that ability to be observant. He wants to be the guy in his comic book.
He's single-minded.
He wants to be the glory hero killer guy. And he's also got a level of resentment built up in him. But just to keep focusing on Shane, I thought her journey through this was spectacular. It was actually my favorite. I like what Cooper goes through as well, but I really like how Shane has grown as a character, where at the beginning of the series, say in her first big episode where we had the silicates, she could be the one who, I seemingly have my head screwed on straight, but actually I can lose it and become unhinged. And we've stripped that away over the course of the series, and she has actually become the most competent, level-headed, mature character in the 58th.
She's the captain for a reason.
She's the and that's it. She's the captain for a reason. She has to make tough calls, and they actually weigh on her. She actually considers them, and she's actually willing to change her mind. And I love that in this story, where she comes at it from the most logical point of view. I agreed with her in the beginning of the story. Yeah, kill this thing. At least hunt it down and incapacitate it. It's witnessed events. It could be an enemy agent. We don't know, and we have a certain amount of time to do this. I like that she knew that her and Hawks were the most competent to do this job and the most interested in doing it, because the others had already shown some apprehension to it.
Well,
so
yeah. It's like, well, she's the captain. She's got to make the call, and Hawks is also the one that saw it. So they're the most logical in that way as well. Like, there's lots of reasons that make that a solid decision.
It's great delegation of responsibilities, and they split off and they just do the thing. But as we go through the drama, she just keeps encountering these small signs that this isn't the evil alien Chig that she thinks it is. We have Danfus pointing out that the footprints don't match, the description of how it moves is different, it's not in the armor, so there's apprehension there. And with each one of these points, there's always a counter to it. There's always a counter to it as well that gives us that ambiguity of what our heroes should do.
If it's not the enemy, if this is some innocent life whose home is about to be turned into a devastated battlefield, do we try to warn it?
I guess the point that really drew it all together for me, that, like, when I think of this episode, I'm probably going to think of the panda scene. Because she says it, and I'm kind of with Hawks when it's like, what does that even mean? And then she sort of unpacks it from her viewpoint, and then a couple of the others make comments about it, and it's like, yeah, what is our responsibility to protect other species, and the fact that we've failed to do that on Earth, and also how depressing it is to be the last one of your kind, and how oblivious it may be to that experience that may come to be, or the danger and attention that it's been given at this moment. There's a lot of ways that you can look at that, and like, a part of that is because Vanson is, as a character, struggling through the thoughts. And it's like, it doesn't really make sense yet. She doesn't have a concrete answer anymore. She's just thinking back to her own experience and trying to fit this new situation into something that she knows and understands.
I really like that panda speech. That moment was it was a great little piece of sci-fi. Where it's like, oh, we killed all the pandas died out, but it gets into a topic that the series has touched on again and again and again, which is the human need to expand and conquer and destroy and dominate. And we have seen the damage that we've done towards our own Earth. To even keep bringing it back. Stardust we gave a lot of crap to, but it's an episode where you as a viewer and us discussing it, as well as the show, keep going back to. That episode talked about how we do that to our own people, to different cultures, and how we oppress them and hurt them and fuck them over and leave them in a damaged state. And now we're talking about it when it comes to the environment, right, with animals. And now we're looking at it and using all of these things that we've seen, like the tanks are the same and the silicates are the same, where we just perpetuate this violence onto the world around us because we need to conquer it.
Life is cheap.
Life is cheap.
As Hawks points out. Truth is brutal.
Truth is brutal. But where does it end? And we have this here where we could make this alien here the last panda. We could just do the same thing where we just reap the land for our own benefits and fuck over everyone else to do so because we need to. Because we have some reason. It's always a reason, and most of the time it actually isn't. And life is cheap. The part of the resentment that's at the core of what Cooper's having here is he's the same. He's a tank. He's a victim of this, that this what we know to be a Chig could be as well. This inherent problem within humanity is what he has been a part of. And so it builds up as this resentment in him, and he's going to perpetuate it because that's what happens. That's just sadly a part of the beast of life. That panda speech really is the heart of the episode to me. I'm so glad that you highlighted it and brought it up. It was a spectacular moment. I really liked, for me, one of the moments that really kicked my butt into gear when it came to the darkness of what our characters would be willing to do is we know that this alien is looking after children, looking after babies, like unborn babies, and we have a sequence where it's burying one. It's giving it a little ceremony, a little ritual. It's all silent. And that scene, it's a classic case of it's manipulating you, the audience, because of course you would feel for this alien, this being that's burying a dead baby. And it has feelings about it. So, of course, you would feel sympathy or something towards it. But I'm not cold-hearted. It worked. I could see what it's doing in the script, but it worked. Dang it. It worked. Mm-hmm. That alien's so expressive. It's got these big eyes. It's these very expressive eyes, even though they're cold and black. It's a whole lot of work going in there. But that sequence there really made me grit my teeth and wonder, is Cooper going to be killing babies in this episode?
And he does.
And the answer is yes. And he feels a connection with the babies. Now, did you figure out before the reveal that this cave was filled with embryos? Did you link that before we got that shown to us?
No, I don't. I was like, this. It feels like it's some kind of facility, but I did not guess that. I was like, it feels like this person is here doing a job. The alien creature is there doing a job, serving a function, not just surviving. So then it just kind of clicked into gear when it's like, oh, it's a nursery.
Did you click that the alien was a chick?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, even though they do a lot to try and balance it, and I think they do it fairly successfully, I just had a bit of, like, my media brain was turned on. So I was like, I feel like it has to be a chick.
There was enough that we've already seen to let us know that it's a chig.
Yeah.
The hands were the same. It has the flapping gill things around its face and neck, which we've seen. It's got a similar shape head, but different enough. But a head that you can imagine fits into that helmet. And the nursery for me really reminded me, it wasn't exact, but it reminded me of the interior of that one ship that they had captured in that episode where they were going to fly it back, where it was alien and bizarre, but it was round and spherical and just organic,
yeah.
And it brought that back to me. So there was enough peace, and that's congratulations, Space Above and Beyond, because you didn't cheat. They didn't cheat where they could do that thing where they cheat to make it not be the chig, then to reveal actually it was a chig. We fooled you, ha ha ha.
It was the chig all along.
But they played fair. They gave us enough of the clues that we've already seen in the season and in the singular episode to believe it could be the chigs, and also enough to be in doubt.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any other life in the universe of this series?
I don't know at this point. I'm not sure. I do think that the corporation stole some chig babies to make the in vitro stuff possible. That's my theory currently.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Wang brings it up, or at least Wang and Wes talk about it, which is, why is it unusual, the idea that we could have encountered another alien life form out there?
If we've encountered one, we should encounter more. Which is goes back to my other theory that somehow they're going to be linked to humanity, which I think that particular flame is extinguished by the opening shots of this episode. But I still, for some reason, hold on to that theory.
Well, I think the opening of the episode, her monologue and the juxtaposition of images doesn't dispute what you think. It doesn't, and the whole sentiment of we all come from the same place, I don't know if it necessarily is disputed, but it's playing around with your expectations of it. There's a definite awareness in the series that they know that the audience may be thinking about this, and so they're fucking with you. And I like it. Thank you guys for toying with us about this. But is this a series to you that could introduce another alien life form or other life out there? Is that something that it could do, and would you buy it? Because I guess if you agree to that or not, that is a part of the journey of this episode. Because this episode is saying, do you, the audience, believe that this series could have other alien life out there?
I was wondering that, and I was kind of imagining if the alien that's at the center of this was not a chig and a third party, and they get involved and help broker peace.
I say it's horse pucky. What if it's not? This war could be over today, without any further loss of life.
Wang brings up that a part of the silicate's existence was to hopefully one day be able to travel out into the universe with sperms and eggs and help populate outer reaches of space and expand again.
When we thought that we couldn't travel faster than light.
It goes back to that inherent need that humanity has of expansionism. Where we have to go back. And the irony, the funniest thing is, the silicates were hopefully made for that purpose. And what did they do? They rejected our need for them to help facilitate our conquest of the galaxy. And they just said, no, actually, we want to kill you. How funny is that?
Based on a line of code.
Based on a line of code. Oh, yeah, we know why. But it's just an amusing thing that in this series,
humanity fails.
Humanity gets kicked in the teeth every time it tries to step
its own stupidity.
Yeah, every time they try to step their foot out of the playground, they just get punched back in, and it is I'm not saying that they deserve it necessarily, but also this Earth is a shitty, mean Earth. Cooper is very dark and brooding in this episode, and he's become a very refined character. They've made him humorous. They've made him less of a hothead, but he still has those hothead tendencies. And in this episode and the previous one, Sugar Dirt, he flew off the handle a lot in both episodes, would challenge Vanson's authority. And I just want to ask of you, in this episode, did it go over the line for you? Did you find it too much, or did you find it just right? And if so, why does it work?
I found it, like, I didn't question it. I was like, no, this is all like Cooper. His petulance, reading his comic and being annoyed to put it away, and the fact that he doesn't like the helmets, and we know that they're uncomfortable because they don't work with his belly button on his neck.
That's right. I didn't even think about that, but that's exactly right. That piece of continuity. So you didn't find it too much.
And I'm like, yeah, he has been trained to be a Marine and to kill and to not ask questions. So the fact that he's propelling that forward and that he wants to protect the 58th and keep them from danger and make sure that they get up safe and that they are safe when they come back down on the planet for the actual battle.
I found it perfectly in line as well, not just in terms of his character continuity, because you're right, it makes sense for who we know Cooper to be. It makes sense he's playing it out in the way that we not only expect, but in a way hope, because he adds a lot of dramatic flair to episodes. For myself, what really works about it is it puts you in uncomfortable shoes, because I think a large part of the fascination with war stories, whether they're ones set in space or they're ones set in World War II or now, I think one of the inherent fascinations of them is you wonder who you would be.
You would be like under
that pressure. Maybe you have a certain ideal of I wouldn't do that. And so you have that moral superiority. Or if you're willing to dabble like I am, you think to yourself, would I be any different to Cooper? I related to Cooper in this episode because he had so many valiant and brilliant, incredible points that he was bringing to the table. And yet also, I don't want to be Cooper. I don't want to be the guy who could take lives and potentially cause even more mayhem. But he's also bringing a level of thinking about the bigger picture to this. And he's following orders. And it's the type of thing that this genre should play in, which is making the audience sit in something that is icky, sit in something that is uncomfortable, because we can't just make the audience believe, oh yes, I'll be a noble hero like Wang and Nathan West, two characters who in the show already have committed some war crimes or atrocities or betrayed their fellow teammates and all of that.
Yeah, especially those two.
Yeah, that's why I bring them two up, because they were the moral high grounds of the episode.
Yeah, and I love when they're trying to talk to the alien. It really reminded me of, weirdly enough, a Ricky Gervais show moment came to mind.
Oh, okay. Which show?
Like, no, the Ricky Gervais show.
Oh, yes.
Because in that, they have a bit where they're sort of explaining and exploring to Carl the idea that even if a lion could talk, you wouldn't understand it.
Oh, I kept pointing at the screen and clapping when they were trying to communicate with this alien, and none of them had a fucking clue what to do. And each time one of them thought they did, they realized, actually, I don't. Wang?
Wang. That was where I was leading to.
Has Wang become a successful comedic relief character in your books? Because in the beginning, you didn't find him funny or amusing. Where are you now?
I do. I really heartily giggled when he's like, oh, I thought I really had something. And West, like, practically literally pats him on the back and goes, I get what you were trying to do, mate. I get what you were trying to do. I understood.
I understood, man.
It's so cute. In this brutal situation.
West is also a funny character. West has grown to be a very, very, very funny guy.
I did not think it was possible to dig West out of the hole after, like, the first episode and the pilot, but gosh darn it, they did it.
They try to do all of the things that you see them to do to communicate in these stories. Oh, I'll use my hand gestures. I'll point to things. I'll slowly talk, and none of it's working, and they realize it. And I said, if only that English guy was here, the guy who's specialized in learning alien languages, animal sounds, and like physical cues, because these are just Marines. That's not what they're there to do.
No.
They're not the specialists,
the special unit that they get in at the end,
or they're not a heroic Star Trek crew who are practically infallible and they can come up with this, and if you just leave them on the planet with nothing but a knife, they could figure it out overnight, like Picard. They're not that. They're just these guys who are like, I got something else to do, but we got to try and tell you to get out of here. I don't know how to do that, actually. I like that they were incompetent about it. They figured out a method and a way to do it, which was with pictures, which I actually thought was a cool method.
It linked back into the comic book.
They literally draw it out for him.
Yep. And it's just like, well, yeah, because that's the literal interpretation, and it's also one of the most primitive forms of communication is pictures, illustrated.
Oh, a way of saying we all come from the same place.
How do you know?
I can feel it.
The big question that everybody has on their lips. Do you like the Chig design?
I do. I like it. It makes their armor make more sense than it did before. Like, the way that it's actually all fitted together. I get it in a way that I didn't before.
So it managed to do the impossible, because there's always that thing of you build up to it for so long. You've kept them mysterious. You've had them hidden from us, the viewer, for so long that there's a thing of when you do reveal what it is, it's always going to be, it'll most likely be a letdown.
Yeah.
But you didn't find that to be the case here. You found it to be satisfactory.
Yeah. I think it helped that I sort of just thought that they didn't, like, they were that. Like, even though I knew that it was a helmet, I hadn't spent that much time imagining what was underneath. So I didn't have expectations going in.
You aren't a big Chig fan. That's not the stuff that draws you into the show. So you wouldn't have that hunger. I did, and many people do. We wanted to know what the Chigs look like. What are they under there? They've been so mysterious. We've got bits and bobs and bits and pieces, but what is this creature? And I find it very satisfying. I like the design so much. It's very emotive. The actor in it is doing a great job.
Yes.
And it has these markings on its face that reminds me of, is it Aztec or Mayan type things? Those illustrations that they would like etch into their stone, those little swirls that it has. It really reminded me of that kind of design. And so it also gave me that evoking of something I'm familiar with, but it's also on a creature that's unfamiliar. You can see that it has some of that amphibian nature to it, but also a bit of a primate type.
Not oxygen dependent.
It's not oxygen dependent. And I like the Chig design. We get the big payoff even more so to it when the head Chig comes onto the Saratoga and does the big, I'm taking off the helmet, and it's the same type of alien we just spent time with.
Confirmation!
Confirmation, and the 58th don't know that's been confirmed.
No, they still aren't back on the Saratoga, and I don't know why.
They haven't informed the Saratoga that they met this alien, met an alien like this on the planet.
No.
Or met an alien on the planet. So there's conflict to be mined in the future with that. We've got an episode where we can play with that a bit.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait a whole week.
Is there anything else you want to talk about in this?
No, I think that covers what I wanted to touch on. Like I said...
So you've spooged all over the place with the episode? Yeah?
This episode's a Yum Yum, Ryan. What's your rating in the title for next week's episode?
You don't sound impressed with me.
I'm not.
But you're still married to me, right?
Go ahead.
Make my day, punk. I give it a yum yum.
Yum yum.
This next episode, the final episode of Space Above and Beyond, the last one, the goodbye show for Space Above and Beyond is Tell Our Mums We Done Our Best. And it's episode 23, and I can't tell you what the DVD description is, Rachel.
No,
you have to
never
guess.
do that.
You have to guess. What do you think happens in the next and final episode of Space Above and Beyond?
I think I'm gonna be optimistic and say that there's a truce, that they do manage to broker peace, and that we get the explanation for why the war started. I'm gonna be hopeful and say we get answers.
Okay,
I don't think we're going to get all of the answers. I think we might get some. I don't know which parts we are going to get answers to. I would love for them to not mention Kylan.
Oh, I think you can't do that. She's the reason all of this starts.
I know, but I would love that they were like, no, we don't have time for that. I just kind of love that, like, the whole driving force at the start of the show is just
gone,
abandoned at the end.
That would be rad.
I just find that amusing. I think that they are going to touch on it.
I want to ask you this question, and some of it will probably be related to what you've already talked about, but this being the final one.
Yes.
You just answered, like, how do you think it will go?
How I hope. I don't... Yeah.
What I was going to ask is, what do you want out of the final episode? What do you want out of it?
I don't know. Like, I want those answers, but I don't think the show is necessarily going to give me everything, like, on a silver platter and go, and here's the bow for this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, because there's so many different aspects that they have set up. I think what I won't like is if they repeat sort of what happened with the Angriest Angels and they just kill the whole 58th. but McQueen lives, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I would be very upset if they do that. I would like it if we get some answers about the corporation and how that plays into things, and maybe an acknowledgement of the evil UN leader.
Yeah, Hayden. She's great. I can't recollect, but I want her back. She was so good. She was so good. Yeah. So that is it. That's all we have for you in this discussion of Space Above and Beyond. So please make sure everyone to check out the final episode of Space Above and Beyond. In the meantime, step up to the plate and watch it along with us. Get all of your friends, make sure that they've caught up with Space Above and Beyond, and watch the final episode with popcorn in your lap, and you throw it up in the air when crazy things happen and go, whoa! And you can write into us at yumyumpod@gmail.com with your thoughts, feelings, and experiences with what we've discussed here and what you think about Space Above and Beyond. You can follow us on the social medias as well under YumYumPod or
YumYumPodcast. And a special thank you to our patrons who heard this episode first.
That's right. They get the Yum Yum seal of approval before you people listening to this on the main feed, because for our patrons on Patreon, we had this all laid out. We discussed Space Above and Beyond on our Patreon first, and you can hear that final discussion right now if you head over to Patreon, as well as a whole bucket load, more than a bucket, 2 buckets load of content over there. The buckets are very large, Rachel, of content over at our Patreon, as well as being a part of a group Discord.
Third bucket, or is the second bucket just
we have to
overflowing?
We have to finish Space Above and Beyond.
And
we did that. We did that. We finished it by the time you're listening to this. But you know who isn't finished? They may be dead.
Pags.
But they're never finished being in our lives.
They're gone, but never forgotten. Whose side do you think Pags would have been on at the start? Do you think he would have been on West's side or Hawks' side?
Oh, he's on Hawks' side. He was Hawks' best
all
friend.
All the way.
I thought it would have been really funny if the Chig took its helmet off and revealed it was Pags.
Of course he did.
And then he said, he looks up into the camera and it has that dramatic smile.
And he says, good eating to you?
No, he says, hey, ho, let's go.
Here's to Pags.